All right, well, here we go. Looks like we're starting with me. And this one I've been waiting for. Online DNA tests extremely unreliable. I remember when the actress, Angelina Jolie, got a double mastectomy, supposedly because a DNA test showed that she was very likely to get breast cancer. And I was very surprised because I didn't think those tests were reliable enough to do something so drastic just based on something that might happen. And they said, oh, they can tell from your genes that you've got like a 90% chance of getting fatal breast cancer, so you have to take immediate drastic action. Anyway, apparently there are online tests that will report to you a result like that. And of course, it's all garbage. They aren't that accurate at all. I've heard the most experts in the field say, don't take these online DNA tests. You might as well just get a tarot card reading. It would have just as much value in predicting your future or something. And that's now they have some more stern statements saying this. Now, there might be some genetic tests you can actually get at a doctor's office that are reliable enough to predict things, but certainly not these online things, because they use these things called SMP chips, which are not accurate enough to do individual cases. So anyway, I'm not very surprised. These things like 23andMe are pretty much just astrology. Anyway, then Liz has got Gab, which is bloody awesome.
Yeah, so from what I could tell, doing a little bit of research for the story, Gab is sort of like the new Parler, where once the app stores started cracking down on Parler, then they made Gab, which is another free speech champion, right-wing social media platform. And they got hacked, and all this data got leaked, including like DMs and uh, various user profile and post data and stuff like that. And it was pretty funny because the one of the hacking groups, someone from one of the groups that released the stuff, basically said it was pretty much a gold mine of info for folks who are trying to research like QAnon and stuff like that. And their CEO, when they got hacked, attributed this breach to demon hackers. That is a direct quote. So,
Yep. And they didn't
pretty
dump it publicly. They just made it available for like researchers.
yes, which I thought was far too kind. I thought they should have done a public dump of that stuff. If you're so proud of yourself and your views, and your freedom of speech, then what do you have to hide?
Tisk, tisk. I thought it was great. They put this picture on social media. Our way of life must be preserved, of a family at a barbecue where everyone has a gun, including the kids and the dog. And people shared this as like an obvious satire, but it's really from Gab. They really, it's like a Nazi recruiting poster, except everybody has a gun. And they're like a satire of themselves at this point.
I thought it was a total joke when I first saw it. I thought somebody like made that up as a
Yeah,
tongue in cheek.
it's like Norman Rockwell with guns.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it looks like a joke image, but it's totally not. I guess they're totally serious.
I'm not aware of anybody that would get their dog a gun. I mean, that's a whole new.
I definitely don't. I don't want to get my dogs guns. I mean, geez, we'd never. We'd. They'd probably carjack me and like make them drive them to the burger stand or something.
Well, that would be logical, but yeah. Anyway, so maybe that'll benefit the Congress and stuff that's investigating the people at January 6th.
Hopefully so. Those guys are getting arrested and they're not happy about it. There was one of them was complaining that he's still in jail after having broken into Nancy Pelosi's office, and it's just totally not fair.
Yeah, I like the one demands vegan food. The other says you have to get cockroaches out of here. This cell is disgusting. And the other people got free and I didn't get to go free. Why not? They're all like getting a lesson in like basic how crime works.
Yes, the shaman was irate that there's no organic food in jail.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Even
you
I
know,
mean,
though,
to
I
be
may not be
fair,
the first person to notice this, but those Trump insurrectionists are kind of mentally deranged.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is, you really can't hold someone in prison, and if they really do have a heartfelt belief that they will not eat meat, you can't, get them to starve. You actually do need to, treat them with basic human dignity if you have them in custody.
Yes,
Were-
I suppose that's right. You also don't dump
they
their data.
Were they refusing to feed them vegetarian food or something?
He wanted vegan food.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so he wasn't eating as a result, and that's cruel and unusual punishment. So, he definitely has every right to demand, vegan food if that's his diet and that's his religious beliefs and whatnot. I don't want to discourage prisoners from, requesting their basic dietary needs be met.
Oh,
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that's happening, even just for prisoners on the quote unquote normal diet. It's pretty disturbing to see, what's happening with the way that prisons are administered and the food budgets in a lot of states.
we certainly could use prison reform. Yeah. Anyway, then we got Irvin with Pcaption beacons.
I found this the other day, and this ties with the project I've been working on, my little packet wall. What I liked about this is it has a little rule that or filter that you can apply in Wireshark and T-Shark and others to distinguish any type of Metasploit or Cobalt Strike shellcode.
Well, Cobalt Strike, not Metasploit, I think.
It works for both.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
didn't
it works for both.
I didn't know Metasploit had beacons, but that's cool. These beacons are really obvious. It's got like just repeating ASCII characters.
But if you don't have something watching over, you won't see them. So for me, it's that since I'm looking for more stuff to add to my lights as to what to detect, this to me was another thing to add.
No, I'm really glad you pointed this out. I did not know that Metasploit shellcode had beacons.
Apparently it does.
I'll have to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm curious to add this to my rule set and see what, see if my lights light up if I run something like Metasploit and see if they detect it.
Yes, if you just had, there's also some entropy tests to detect beacons. You could have a red alert that goes off when it detects beacons. That would be awesome. And Kaitlyn's got the big one, of course, the 30,000 Microsoft email servers hacked.
Yep, this is the big news of the week. Microsoft has a bunch of 0 days in their Outlook server. So if for whatever reason you're running an Outlook server, it's your business, you could be in big trouble. So far, 30,000 US organizations have been hit with malware, exploiting the 0 days found in the Exchange server. And that's pretty much about it. Just a huge hack. Everyone's kind of going wild. Apparently, one of the big ways of getting access on the system is using the Exchange server to essentially throw on a web shell and then use the web shell to get remote code execution.
The thing that surprised me is I thought everybody went to Azure.
That's what I thought too.
In our Exchange class,
Right.
because we thought nobody was using it, but I guess they are.
Yep. Apparently, there's still people out there still using, a local Exchange server. I don't know why. I mean, even if you have a large enterprise where you have to like VPN in to get your email, you can still sort of proxy out, to.
Yeah. I thought it was all Office 365 these days.
Yeah, I don't.
And then the other one I added to this list is the New York Times article where they're talking about how we are now going to retaliate against Russia. And now they're considering retaliating against China because apparently, Russia did the previous one, SolarWinds, and apparently China is the one that did this Exchange attack.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't blame other countries for trying to hack us. Like, I don't think that it's necessarily like a bad move on their part. Like, we're not going to start retaliating against every country that tries to spy on us. The problem is that they're hitting a lot of private citizens. And that's the real issue. It's like, it's one thing if the governments kind of want to go after each other and do their own, spy, whatever stuff that they do. Like, they want to make it so that the United States has a more difficult time building nuclear weapons. Okay, whatever. That's not cool, but it's just part of the geopolitical spectrum. It's another thing when they're going after private corporations, private enterprises, private people, and disrupting people's abilities to, do their job. I mean, yeah.
That's been China's role all along, is to steal our intellectual property so they can make Chinese knockoffs of everything. I mean, that is their big open project.
It is. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it seems, yeah, I don't know if retaliation is a good idea, but certainly, we need to scale things back. We can't have these nation states just going after, private citizens all the time. That's just not cool.
I guess for them, they could argue that it's the similar to bombing factories and whatnot, like in World War II.
Yeah,
but the thing is, we're not in a world war.
I know. But
well, what we are is we have border disputes and little insults across the border, and that's what these are. These are the typical jockeying for position, which sometimes flares up into a war. And yeah, I mean, the problem is the United States won't join cyber arms deals. This is Nicole Pearl Roth's big thing. We won't restrict our weapons because we're the number one attacker and we don't want any restriction on us. But
yeah, but as far as I know, we're not attacking private citizens in other countries. We're, like I said, doing the normal.
I don't think we know what we're doing. I think it's all secret.
I think we would know. I think we would know if we were attacking private citizens, like the way that China and Russia are doing, like with the SolarWinds and the recent exchange server hacks. Like those hit regular corporations.
Well, yeah, but then they infected them, so they had like a shell on them, but then they didn't like take them down or anything. And I'm sure that we own the Russian power plants and stuff like that too. And we just haven't chosen to take them down yet. I would imagine we penetrated them more than they penetrated us.
Well, then where is the evidence of this?
Oh, I have no evidence of this. I'm just making it up. But my general belief is that the NSA is far more deadly. And the last, the Trump administration and now the Biden administration have both pretty much taken the gloves off and given them license to go ahead. Now, Biden has said they have to have major operations approved by the White House, whereas Trump said they could just go ahead.
Yeah, we need, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on international politics, but it seems like we need to de-escalate, the situation.
That's what Nicole Pearl Roth wants, but there seems to be no appetite for that in the United States. We just want the right to continue to deploy cyber weapons as much as we like, and we don't want anybody like trying to limit it yet. Anyway.
They want to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah, well, it results in jobs for our students. Anyway, so, all right, so then we got HalfDamn from Alan.
HalfDamn being the group that is executing this major attack on.
Well, that's the
Microsoft.
Chinese group. Okay.
Yes, that's right. And it seems that there are now 4 different groups, all of which apparently originate in China, that are participating in this attack now. That is the latest speculation. So it's expanded significantly. And Chris Krebs, the former cybersecurity chief of the US, in this brief Twitter thread, expresses his confusion as to why it's expanded like this, because it does not, it doesn't follow typical Chinese government-sponsored MO.
Yeah, that's what surprises me. I mean, are they organized or what? How can there be 4 different groups? Have they lost control of their own military, or do they have significant criminal groups?
Right. Well, that's what he's musing about here, is that, is it an attack that simply got out of control, and that we have consultants or mercenaries that have taken one too far, or is this in fact planned and intended to create chaos?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically targeting IR professionals, incident response cybersecurity professionals, since they are already overwhelmed because of the SolarWinds fallout.
Yeah.
So perhaps we'll see more in the coming days and weeks, but it is an interesting situation, not least of all because of the organizations that it affects, rather than large, sophisticated organizations. These on-premises exchange servers tend to be run by smaller businesses, schools, organizations that don't have a significant IT budget. And apparently there are situations in which you really can't rely on Azure and Office 365. Some kind of, I forget, but some kind of integration with AD requires, Active Directory, requires you to run on-premises Exchange servers still.
Really?
So yeah,
I
so
thought
there
you
are
could totally do
apparently
that all in Azure.
cases in which it is necessary to run on-prem.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because obviously the solution is for small and medium businesses to just outsource it all to the cloud and let somebody else run the IR team.
Yeah, Office 365 is great.
Yeah.
Very powerful and not that expensive.
Yeah. Well, anyway, then I thought this is awesome. How to poison the data that the big heck is using to target ads. When I very first time I taught the hacking class, the students brought in their hacking projects, and one of them brought in Waste, which was a VPN that would make all kinds of extra network traffic to hide your traffic among. And that's what this does. You put a browser extension on, and it clicks on every ad, so that there's no longer any useful data. And if you try to get it, they say Google already kicked us out of the Google App Store for this Chrome extension. So you have to go through some kind of process outside Google to install it, because they hate it so much. And that's a sign that it must be working. This reminds me of one called Blue something about 15 years ago. Somebody made an extension you could put on your browser that you pick up your email, and every time you got a spam email, it would go fill out a complaint form at the company that sent you that spam email. So they would get flooded with complaint forms every time they sent out spam. And that was so effective that a Russian cybercrime group hacked the main server, stole all the information, and emailed all the people and said, if you don't uninstall this, we're going to hunt you down and shoot you. And the people who made it took it down and said, oh my God, quit using it. We're terrified, because it really stopped spam. And spam is big business for the criminal syndicates in Russia. And this one is apparently really bothering Google, that they no longer get useful tracking. And I believe I've seen Google recently promise that they're going to stop individualized tracking, but they've said that before, and it's a lie. They do things like remove the last octet of your IP address, but keep all the other cookies, so they can pretend they forgot who you are when they haven't really. So this is part of the huge battle now of personalized tracking. But anyway, it'd be sort of fun to turn this thing on and see what happens, because I've certainly noticed, I think what everybody else has, they know everything about me. Everything I talk about, everything I do, that's what I'll see tomorrow in the ads. So if I turn on this, maybe that won't be true anymore. Anyway.
I wonder if that works with things like Pi-hole, since it already blocks ads. Maybe the ones that get through it'll click on.
Well, I know, that's what I was thinking. I'm using Brave, which has no ads anyway. But they do still pick up something by reading my email or something. And then, all right, Intel CPU interconnects leak encryption keys.
Yeah, this is an interesting paper. This article is about an interesting paper on a new side channel attack that was discovered and outlined by some security researchers that's going to be presented at a conference this year. So it was pretty interesting because at first when I started reading through it and trying to understand it, I thought it was based on a race condition, but it's not. It's interesting because the defense against this is writing time constant code, but having perfectly time constant code isn't exactly easy. It's not easy to make that happen. So apparently this is pretty exploitable. I haven't seen their POC yet, so I haven't been able to try on it. I haven't been able to try it out or really dig into it. Supposedly they're going to release the POC, the exploit code today. So that'll be interesting to check.
So there's something called the ring bus, which is what takes you from user land to kernel land, and there's contention and delays in getting the ring bus. This is all news to me.
Yeah, I thought that was like a real time. I thought that was happened in real time. So it's kind of new to me. So it's pretty, I think this stuff's really interesting.
Oh yeah, it sounds like Spectre and Heartbleed. It sounds like a fundamental logical weakness of the chip design.
Mm-hmm.
So probably I'm guessing you wouldn't be able to help this without a hardware upgrade.
I can't imagine you would. They say the answer to it is to write perfectly time consistent code, but good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, supposedly they make their paper available yesterday, so there might be more information available. Anyway, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so robots are coming.
Yes, robots are coming. Yes, robots are coming. It looks like AI is smart enough to start doing a lot of the stuff that people who initially thought they couldn't get taken out by AI now can, like accounting people.
Really?
Yeah, so apparently AI can do a lot of those accounting things, like merging spreadsheets and whatnot. So those folks who thought that they were fine are not so much fine anymore. Like there's a story in that article of a lady who came back from a vacation and she had to train a person who was writing a program to do her job.
Well, of course, but I mean, this is essentially DevOps. I mean, you should automate whatever you can.
Yeah.
Then it would be cheaper and more reliable.
And that also means less work for people.
Well, yes, but hopefully you can fix that with giving them better jobs or universal basic income or something. I mean, the idea is you don't have people on like an assembly line picking cabbages or something. You have robots do all the work, and then we have this glorious Star Trek utopia.
Right. So that example is the blue collar. This is all white collar now.
Yeah,
it's moved on up. So for now, management and people who can do this, build this kind of infrastructure, are fine for now.
Right. I mean, this is the basic trend of economics for the past few hundred years.
Yeah.
We went from this agricultural society where most of the jobs were, of course, in planting crops, getting crops, and then we moved into the industrial age, where that largely got automated through industrialization. And now we had people going into manual labor jobs where you would build things, and then that got automated, and then now all the jobs moved into the service market, then of course now AI is coming along and newer technologies are automating that, and there's really no other market to move to after that, because those are the three things you have agriculture, you have industry, and then you have service aspects of the economy. And after that, there's really nothing else. So once we automate large parts of the service economy, people are just not going to have jobs anymore. And that scares some people, and it's also very exciting in a lot of ways, because it can really fundamentally change the way we live our lives.
Yeah, and before the Industrial Revolution, 200 or 300 years ago, nobody had jobs. They just worked like on their farm and stuff, and they didn't have a boss or a paycheck. And we could just get back to that. I mean, at first, this introduction of jobs where you would go to move the city and work in the factory was seen as a horrible destruction of the family and a ruin of our life. And now we're like addicted to it. But I don't really think we'll miss it when it's gone.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is we talk a lot about freedom in the United States, but how free are you to, for example, if you want to be an artist, go off and be an artist? I mean, are you okay with starving? Is that really an acceptable trade-off? Not live on the streets? No, of course not. You can't do that. You're not really free. And so I think moving forward, it's going to be a tough transition, but we'll figure out a way to make it work.
I think the United States, with its Protestant work ethic, is the big problem. We won't even give people socialized medicine or universal basic income. So you have to have a job, but there are no jobs. That's why we need to knock it off and start giving people the basics of life so they can live without a job.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is where UBI and socialized medicine really come in, because I mean, we've already figured out too that our current system, especially with medicine, isn't working. I mean, I have like really good insurance, and the care is terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. And I mean, it's not, it's I don't think that it's working for people with money or without money at this point, but we're just stuck in the system.
No, I expected the pandemic to at least give us socialized medicine in America, and even that hasn't. So what is this nonsense?
And you know, it's interesting because some time ago there was an experiment done with Stockton, California, which is a really poor, crime-ridden city, where they gave essentially UBI to a bunch of people to see how it worked as an experiment, and the outcomes were incredibly positive from it. And I think, you know, once we start looking at these these models and stuff like this, and these experiments where it's actually had really positive outcomes, you know, maybe we could start to move in that direction, because I think people have this misconception that you know, it's going to cost them a whole ton of money if we do this. And it's like, no, you're already being cost a whole ton of money for ineffective programs that aren't actually taking care of people. We're still paying the money out. Just like with medical care, with socialized medicine, people are like, oh, well, that's going to cost a ton of money. It's like, no, you're already paying for it. You're already paying it. It's just all the money is going into the pockets of the insurance companies and the hospitals.
Yeah, you know, this goes all the way back to the 60s and 70s when Milton Friedman was the first one to say, you know, if you just take the people below the poverty line and just give them enough money to come up to the poverty line, that would only cost 10% as all the welfare and everything that you have now.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy too when you find out that you know, when you see that, just like in the Stockton experiment, they just gave people $500 a month.
Yeah.
That was it. Everybody just got $500 a month. And they found out that, you know, I think a lot of the times people just argue too, like people just go out and spend it on booze and drugs or whatever, or like gamble it away. That was not what happened here.
Right.
People's like major financial strain was alleviated just with that $500, enough that a bunch that people were able to, you know, get their cars fixed. They were able to buy food, cover unexpected expenses, and they found that less than 1% of it was spent on booze and smokes, and like less than 1% of it, and the rest of it went to all like basic life needs, like buying diapers for your grandkids and stuff like that. And that once people had those basic needs covered, they are actually able to you know, fix their car so they could go back to work, or cover, you know, cut back on their hours at their job so they could like go start taking night classes at community college and stuff like that.
Yeah, Andrew Yang is the big champion of this, of course. And I like his explanation. He said, I'm a capitalist. I'm not a socialist, but I want capitalism not to start at zero. If people don't have a job, you shouldn't just have them homeless in the street dying. There should be a certain amount they get, even if they don't work. And then they will work in order to get more. And that'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, then we got Kaitlyn with inaccessible websites.
Yeah. So Dell is, according to the Register, Dell is being sued for their website not being accessible to people with visual disabilities. Essentially, the way you use a computer, if you cannot see the screen, is that you use the screen readers to essentially read the page for you. And these screen readers can get really confused if your page has too much JavaScript, too much this, too much that. If it's very simple, very just an HTML page, almost like your page, Sam.
I know, that's why part that worries me is how is everyone required to do this now? Could I get sued?
Well, I don't think anyone would sue you for your paid SAM. The only thing that I think you really need to pay attention to is to make sure all your images have alt text on them, which that's why alt text exists on HTML, is so that if you are visually impaired, you can get a description of what the image is. But if it's just, a basic text page, a screen reader will work just fine, right?
But why? But so is everybody required to do this now, or you get sued?
I would assume so. I mean, I can't imagine that not being the
Illegal for
case.
me to put up a page without making it handicapped accessible?
So
Well, I
started digging into that because I had the same exact worry as Sam, because I'm sure, like, for Sam's site, it's used a lot by students.
Yeah.
And mine is starting to increase. So I started running a check and also digging in, and it looks like if your site offers a public service, you should become ADA compliant.
But every site is a public service, right?
Right,
You put up a
right.
blog,
So they have
What's
lists like schools and restaurants and businesses and that kind of stuff, and that's why Dell is getting hit by this. But I think it would be a good idea for us to make sure our sites are also ADA compliant, since we are reaching students, and that I'd just rather not get caught in that.
but I would like to understand what obligation I have.
If you are running this commercially or you're running this as part of CCSF, you actually do have an obligation to be ADA compliant. If you're running this personally, nonprofit, just your own little website, I don't think anyone's gonna sue you for not being ADA compliant. But if you are offering services to the public, like you are a business, you are, a teacher, you definitely should. Now keep in mind that if we're talking about the ADA, a certain college in San Francisco, a city college in San Francisco, has multiple, I know of multiple ADA violations at that place.
Well, I know. But
I also know of a school in Santa Cruz who's also a community college who's in deep violations of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you're in good company if you're not ADA compliant, and it's hard to get ADA compliant. But the thing about it is that a lot of people view it as exceptions. That you're just making exceptions to your website, or you're making exceptions to your building to make it ADA compliant for like a few select number of people. But the truth of the matter is that when you make something truly ADA compliant, or you make things truly accessible, it becomes accessible for everyone. Think of like an elevator, right? Like an elevator is not there for people who can, easily take the stairs, but everyone likes taking the elevator because it's just easier, it's more fun. It's a nice thing to have in your building. And when you do accessibility right, it becomes more accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, but not everybody has to put in an elevator. There's something like being open to the public that means you have to have an elevator.
Right, exactly.
I don't have to. So I wonder to what extent my website is my personal property and I do not need to meet these requirements.
If you are running a business, do you want to go on this?
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, if you're running a business, or if the website is part of your business, or if the website is part of a public institution, then I believe the ADA should apply to you. I'm not a lawyer, don't take my advice on this, but that's my understanding of the law.
Well, that's
you do not, and that's how it works in buildings anyway. If you own a house, you don't have to make it ADA compliant. If you own a restaurant, then you sort of do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
You really are obligated to make it compliant because you're using it for students.
Yeah, it sounds like you're right. I definitely don't want to put on all those image tags. I need to get like an intern or something anyway. All right.
There's sites to help that intern make your site ADA compliant too.
Yep. Be good.
Also, I think it can be a gradual thing too. You don't, not everyone becomes compliant overnight either. So I think it does help if you just start doing it and building in those practices, and the existing material can be brought up to snuff over time.
Well, I know that's what people do, but I think that's just a decision to accept a certain amount of legal risk.
True.
Anyway, So this Singapore company will determine your health by just putting an app on your phone without having to put any sensors or anything. It's just going to take pictures of you, and from the color of your skin, it can see how often your heart is beating. It can therefore measure your pulse and therefore give you a checkup. And the idea is it'll tell you if you appear to be sick or something. And I think, of course, people are interested because of trying to detect if you're infectious. So this is the next step, I think, of these health monitors. Some people buy these devices they wear to monitor this stuff, but this is the idea. You need nothing more than an app and nothing more than the camera to measure your pulse rate and therefore your health and perhaps even your blood oxygenation, that sort of thing. So I think it'd be pretty exciting. We'll see how well it works. And Elizabeth has something about a Formula One team.
Yeah, I
this?
thought that's sort of entertaining. This racing car team had a bunch of their blueprints for their car leaked, and some other material leaked, and it was sort of amusing in that that they were the team is sponsored by a cybersecurity company.
Which company? Or Kronos?
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
that's
Kronos, it looks like.
which I wasn't familiar with them.
Oh, they make it one of the backups. Kronos makes a cloning system, and I think something else besides backup. They've been around for a long time.
You're right.
They make a thing where you make a thing like Ghost, where you can ghost machines over the network.
Yes.
Okay. That's cool.
It works pretty well.
And this was just sort of a funny story. Like I don't think that they had any hand or in or knowledge of what the team was doing, and the fact that they were like releasing an app and stuff like that. So,
yep.
But it is interesting in that pretty much everything's a target now. So
yeah. And as you extend your brand to your business partners, when your business partners get hacked, that affects your brand.
That and if you are a cybersecurity company who's sponsoring a competition team, it probably would be good to extend some free services to that team.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. And then okay, what is this with GoDaddy, Irvin?
So this is a long continuing saga about GoDaddy. So it started with a guy who had a site, I think it was adcreate.com, and somebody in India filed a complaint to GoDaddy about the site, like, oh, it's my site. So they locked it. So GoDaddy locked it. And this dude has spent a lot of money trying to get his site back, his domain back from that complaint, but GoDaddy just does not hear them.
So it's domain registration?
Yes.
Oh, this happens a lot.
Yes, this happens a lot. And it's just continuing on. So this person just wrote their continuing saga, because it's not over yet. And there are many others who are also being affected by this.
Is the site like really popular or something?
It doesn't have to be popular. It just has to get a complaint has to show up for it, and then GoDaddy locks the domain, so you can't move it out.
Right. I've heard so many stories like this. I know there was a suit against ICANN because they will do things like take a site someone's been building a business on for years and then suddenly decide it belongs to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Because it's stuff like that.
There doesn't seem to be much in the way of a proper legal process to settle these cases.
Right, and that's exactly what this guy is saying. Is he's been trying to get some case here and in India to get this out, because the scammers are doing it very easily.
Yeah.
filing those disputes and getting the domains locked.
Yeah, it's the internet is really fragile. I know, like I use YouTube a lot, and I'm occasionally reminded that at any time Google could just decide to cancel my use of YouTube and take down all my videos, and they would just be gone, and there is no recourse. And the same thing's true if you use a domain name. At any moment, your domain name registrars could just nuke it, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. It is disturbing.
Just a bit.
All right, and Kaitlyn, we're running out of chips.
We are, yeah. We have a shortage of chips. So Fast Company has this article going on talking about the critical low amount of semiconductors that we currently have at the moment. And the reason why this is mostly because 70% of the world's semiconductors are manufactured by Taiwan Semiconductor and Samsung, and that's it. And it costs billions, millions upon billions of dollars to, invest in a new, semiconductor processing and manufacturing facility. Mm-hmm. Like, it is not easy, and it requires constant upgrading as technology improves. I mean, it's a huge investment, and that investment is further compounded by the fact that that sometimes things like trade wars happen, right? Where we suddenly say, hey, no, China, we don't want your stuff. And now we're now critically short on semiconductors because we don't really have the infrastructure or the money to make our own infrastructure here to build these chips. And it seems like, well, why is there all this demand all of a sudden? Certainly this is the pandemic, right? And that's part of it. The pandemic makes a small part of the reason why we're having this chip shortage right now, as people are stuck at home, and suddenly we all need these new laptops, and we're looking for new ways to entertain ourselves in our house. Like VR is great at the moment because it's the only way to meet people face to face. But that's actually only a small part of why the demand is up right now. The biggest demand for semiconductors at the moment is the resurgence of Bitcoin. Bitcoin prices have, of course, gone up, and that means there's more people trying to get hardware to mine Bitcoin. And that is the true driver of the current semiconductor shortage. So if you're wondering why you can't get a PlayStation 5 or a Nintendo, it's basically because of Bitcoin miners.
Yeah. And I wonder when Elon Musk, who is probably the main reason why Bitcoin is now popular, is going to realize that by supporting Bitcoin, he is undoing all of his environmental improvements with all of his electric stuff.
Well, not only that, he can't even produce his electric stuff anymore. Car production are way down. They're hit very hard by the semiconductor shortage right now. Yeah. Tesla, in particular, shut down the entire factory making their Model 3 because they're just waiting for the chips to come in. It's a big problem for auto manufacturers. It's a big problem for anyone that relies on semiconductors, which is basically every industry.
Yeah, yeah.
Including cars and ham radio.
Yeah.
People have been complaining about.
Yeah, I'm not very happy with Bitcoin, but I seem to be in the minority. Everybody's jumping in with both feet like it's just fine, and it is really, really not fine for many good reasons.
It's not fine. I mean, at first I thought this was kind of a cool idea, that we could, switch our currency to something that has a bit more, real world value than the dollar, have it backed up by something. But the problem, of course, is that why is Bitcoin so popular? Well, it's mostly used for illegal goods, drug trading, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and it pollutes the world. And the other thing is there's a reason we moved away from the gold standard. All it is another way to go back to gold, which is like a right-wing libertarian trope. But there are reasons you don't want to do that. You're supposed to have a government agency that can manage your money. And they think it's great to get the government out of your money. And I really think that's a big mistake. But anyway.
I agree. I mean, I don't know. I don't like the current economic system where a dollar equals debt. I mean, that just incentivizes people to go into debt. At the same time, no, you don't want the government out of your money. You really do need regulations. You don't want your currency to be primarily fueled by, drug trades and stuff. So.
Yep. And I was disappointed to see Scott Galloway now repeating this stuff, how it's going to breach the unbanked and save the world, which is the stuff they've been saying from the beginning, which seems to be completely false. What it's going to do is facilitate money laundering. That is the only reason Bitcoin exists, and that is the market for it. Anyway, and the last one here, the Air Force is having to change the stealth bomber.
Yes, the Air Force has just put out a contract for, and opened up to the bidding process, a contract for replacing the load heat exchangers of the B-2 bomber. The load heat exchangers are, of course, the use air and ethylene glycol to produce cold air for the cooling system. And it seems that the manufacturer of the aircraft, Lockheed, has forgotten how to make these crucial parts. And so now there's this contract to reverse engineer this component. And starting from zero, essentially, it's not clear whether they've still got the blueprints for it. Maybe they do, or maybe they don't. But this contract is very specific about how the winner of this contract will need to provide all technical data relating to the tooling, core stack up, core vacuum brazing, post braze processing, and core installation of this component. So there's all kinds of knowledge here, manufacturing know-how, that apparently has been forgotten in the 30 years since the 20 B-2 bombers were produced. And it sounds like it's kind of an important part too. Without this cooling system, it sounds like these aircraft won't really work anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting parallel with computers and computer code, how after some decades, the software may still be used, but now the source code has been lost, and the people who programmed it in the first place are dead or gone or what have you. And presumably something similar happened here. Lockheed didn't do this. They had a subcontractor do it, and that subcontractor may have gone out of business 20 years ago. So they have to start from scratch on this and reverse engineer it, which is going to be much harder than just doing it the first time.
Another weakness of the supply chain issues.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for this time. I'm going to stop it.